Hey, hello everyone and welcome to Extreme Graphics Tech. My name is Angelo and well, I wasn't thinking of doing any video today, but the people of Black Myth Wukong released a benchmark and the curiosity got the best of me because I wanted to do so many tests and see so many things that I couldn't resist to make a video about it. So in this video we are going to be testing CPU performance, if 3D cache does affect the performance, what does RT to the normal image, is RT worth it, and what of the reconstruction technique that the game comes with. Of course, when the game comes out, we're going to have a more in-depth analysis of performance and graphical, but this is just like, you know, to have an idea of what to expect. Okay, so we don't go with maybe higher expectations that we should. I'm talking from a technical standpoint. Okay, so we're going to be testing all of that, but before that I have to remind you that 80% of the people watching this channel are not subscribed to it, and I'm not sure why not. Why just don't click on that like button, subscribe button, and help me grow. It's completely free to you and you will helping me so much by doing that. So it's free, just do it. And if you can also activate the bell, because it really helps me and YouTube to, you know, show my channel to more people, grow, and be able to bring you more content like this. So let's start by seeing the first thing we're going to be seeing is the benchmark in its full glory, and you're going to get tired of the benchmark because we're going to see it many times. Okay, but let's see the benchmark in full glory, and then I'll come with my I'll show you other tests, and then I come back with my conclusion. In this first test, the thing that I'm trying to get is if these games benefit from the 3D cache of the 3D cache CPU chips. As you know, these chips adds a lot of cache, but some games don't really take advantage of it because of the nature of the game. However, you can see in this case that this case in particular benefit a lot from the 3D cache. I have not this is something I have not explored so much, so I don't know if any Unreal game does or it's just this particular game, so maybe I will start building some knowledge on this. But in this case, you can see I can actually play and get a lot more performance with only the 3D cache cores from the CPU. As you know, this is a 7950X, which has two CCDs, one with 3D cache and the other without it. So, and the non-3D cache, you can see that it's much more lower than the 3D cache. But then when you use the full CPU, it's better than using the non-3D cache, but it's worse than using only the 3D cache core. So this is important for anyone that has a chip like this with two CCDs, and so you have to limit. I had to limit manually using process lasso in this case, because otherwise it will go with everything. Of course, in any case, it's having great frame rate, so that shouldn't be a problem. You will not have any issues with that. But you know, if you have a 3D cache CPU, 57X 3D, 58X 3D, or any other 3D cache CPU, you are going to be able to get much better performance out of it. So that's a very good thing to see in this case. Because as I said, I have no knowledge. This is something that I have particularly not been testing, and how much the 3D cache has an effect on games and engines and so on. And so in this, I pretend to use this case as a building way. Anyway, we're going to be testing more of this when the final game comes out. As you know, I'm going to be testing with different CPUs and so on, so that we are going to have a better understanding of how much CPU these games needs in order to achieve at least 60 FPS, which is always my goal in my testing. I think anything over 60 FPS is a bonus, but the minimum we want to try to achieve with the CPU and GPU is always 60. Of course, in some extreme circumstances, you will have to be content with 30 FPS, but I think 30 FPS is better than not playing the games. Now, because of this, I thought, okay, let's see now how this game scales in terms of using more CPUs. You know, some games, especially in Real, sometimes using only one core fully, or then two cores and so on. So in this case, I'm using the 3D cache cores, but I'm limiting them to 2, 4, and 8 cores. And as you can see, by using more cores, we get more performance, which means this game is sort of optimized to actually spread the load between as much cores as you have. So yes, it's very good at that. In this case, we can see that 2 cores is still quite good, which already gave me some hope that this is a game that won't need like a super fast CPU in order to get to 60 FPS. But if you're using only 2 cores, which I don't think anyone is, but you can see that the frame rate is much more erratic, so I don't think you're going to have a smooth experience. However, when we go to 4 cores, you can already see that the experiences start to be better. I bet that if I limit the FPS to something like 100 or 60 FPS, it will be completely smooth. But when we go to 8 cores, not only we get better frames, but also a smoother frame time, which means that the game is much more smoother. So that's a very interesting, and I am curious to see the final game when we test it on the different CPUs, especially my i7-6700K, which is an old CPU, but it's only 4 core, 8 threads, and I'm quite sure, convinced by looking at this, that we will be able to get a stable 60 FPS, which is quite a good news. So many people can enjoy this game even if they don't have the latest in CPU or GPU. Well, of course, GPU can limit your situation, but at least CPU will allow you to enjoy the game at 60 FPS. And of course, we're going to be testing with other CPUs like the 5600 or the 3700, the 13700Ks, and so many more. So this first look quite promising in terms of CPU utilization. Of course, we want to have as many cores as possible to have the frame rate as smooth as possible, but you can also limit the frame rate to have it. So I think 2 cores is just an exaggeration on my part, but I was curious to see if it was playable, and as you can see, it is. So that's I have to say, is a good thing in this particular case. Okay, everyone, so this video I'm going to show it you like this, because I think it's the best way to be able to see the differences. And what we're going to see is the 4 different reconstruction techniques that the game comes with, which are DSL, TSR, FSR, and XeSS. So we are going to be looking at it. Unfortunately, because it's 4 videos, after 3 videos sort of okay, but 4 videos make this software goes very laggy. So I can show you like proper movement, so you can see the difference when the techniques are moving. But what I can, so you will have to trust some of the things I'm going to be saying about each technique, because it's the only way to show you properly what I'm trying to say. The first thing I have to say is that this game, for some reason, is extremely sharpened. The sharpening is insane, and the reconstruction technique just exacerbates this technique. So because I'm using this so exaggerated system, because I'm using 4K at 25% as the internal resolution, so the effects are more visible than before. But the point is to try to show you the different techniques. To begin with, I have to say I'm not sure if this game comes with FSR 3.1. I don't think so, because I couldn't see any DLL included. As you know, FSR is decoupled now, so you can replace the DLL. I could not find the DLL in the benchmark, so I think this is using FSR 3.0 because it does accept FSR frame generation, but I don't think it's using the latest iteration of FSR. In any case, when we come here, you can see to begin with that DLSS produces like the more stable image, but when we go and check, you can see that all of them are very pixelated, like very sharp, and TSR is basically unusable. It's really bad, the TSR, and you're going to see some example of that above. And I think XeSS is the second best, even though it looks as the same pixelation as FSR mostly. The thing is that it's more stable in movement, and that can be seen when we see at the trees over here. These trees over here and tends to disappear. Well, TSR, you can see it seems more like a painting, that the paint is just melting or something. It's so bad. But and even though you can see that the 3 images, DLSS is the best and more stable, these two, you know, FSR tends to shimmer a lot more than XeSS at this quality. So I think the second best solution. But there is one thing that I have to say. If we go to what is the frame rate, you can see that the more performant of them all is TSR. The less performant is XeSS. Obviously, this is not running on an Intel card, so if that was the case, it probably would be much better. And then, even though for some reason this happened on the previous video too, FSR at this precise frame is running worse than DLSS, the more performant of them all, besides TSR, was FSR. FSR is better than DLSS in this case, and in some parts FSR goes way better than DLSS. So, but however, as I said, the sacrifice in resolution and clarity is important. So you see here is okay, all 3 are doing good quality, and of course this is 4K. If you try to do the same, while as you can see, for some reason XeSS is doing something to the depth of field, with 1080p is going to be terrible. DLSS is still acceptable at 1080p, but if you go to FSR, just try not to go very low, because it will look really bad. Lots of shimmering, lots of disappearing objects and things happening on the screen. Okay, so okay, XeSS and so on is going quite okay. Let's just pick some areas like this, because it's not moving smooth anyway, so we can just go on see some areas. You can see here DLSS is okay, FSR is a little bit is decent enough, and XeSS is a mix of the two. You can see this is more sharp than the other two, but I think it's more detail than the other two in some areas, but then there are other areas which is worse. So as you can see here, look at this. Okay, these areas are quite pixelated. TSR is just a mess. Look at the reflections here, it's all pixelated, doesn't work. XeSS is generating this sort of not okay, and DLSS is the more pleasing one. FSR is a point in the middle. So let's just jump to another area just to see what we can see. Well, we can see some things here. You see the branches are quite pixelated in every single one of them. Doesn't matter what you do. I don't think, let me just go a little bit further. I think there are some areas we can check. So you see all the distance objects, they look all the same, but when we come here, this area, for example, looks better on DLSS and XeSS and more pixelated on FSR. The problem with FSR is that when it's, you know, not moving, it's quite decent, okay? But the problem is it shimmers a lot more. It's hard to see here because the frame rate is choppy, but you have to trust me when I say that. And here you can see TSR is not able to essentially resolve the grass. It's very bad. DLSS is doing a good job, and also FSR, and XeSS is in the middle. Some areas are better than others. So it's like no solution is actually good at doing all of them. But if you check this, look, this area here looks more stable on DLSS than it looks on FSR or XeSS. So yes, I'm repeating myself. We know that DLSS is probably the best solution of them all. We have already tested this many times. Okay, I just wanted to see how bad it was for others. As you can see here, and where it's moving and like this, FSR tends to create more artifacts. XeSS here is okay, and let's forget that TSR even exists because it's horrible. It's really bad. But as you can see here, there is not much to say. Let's try to see if we can make this move, but you see, this is the problem. 4 videos is too much even for this PC. We never get that smooth movement that we need to make the difference that I'm trying to show you. But still, I think you get the point. Okay, so and this is a 4K. If you try to use FSR at 1080p, I tested, and believe me, it's going to be very bad situation. So I think anyone with not enough GPU should use XeSS first if they can. Otherwise, go to FSR, but I wouldn't recommend going very low on the scale. I think 75% is probably the minimum I will go. Otherwise, you're going to have a shimmering mess of pixels. Okay, I hope you are not tired of this yet, because we have now to check the difference that of the game with and without ray tracing. What I mean is, I'm going to, on one side, on the left side, we're going to see what is the cinematic quality. That means the best quality without ray tracing, and on the right side, we're seeing the best quality with full ray tracing active. Okay, just to see how much or what is that ray tracing give to this game, because it's being very publicized by Nvidia, like, you know, being one of the best ray tracing games, and we know Unreal and ray tracing are not a match made in heaven. Okay, so let's start right here. So as you can see, the first thing we can notice is the water, which, yes, has better and more realistic reflections. As we can see here, there are also some caustics in the water that are much better, like the refractions and the way the light interact with it. And then we can also see like the shadows are more defined here on the background. Okay, we can see that. We are going to see other things while we are watching this video. Okay, but as you can see, already is really underwhelming. Is really a little bit disappointed, because I thought this was going to make a much more bigger difference. At least on the benchmark it doesn't. Maybe in the game there is some areas, closed area or something, that where we can see a bigger difference, but right now in the benchmark it really doesn't make a big difference. However, if we check the FPS, we can see that even though we are a full RT, I don't think we're losing that many frames. Yes, going from 85 to 64 in this particular frame, it is like 20 frames, but I still don't think it's that much, because we've seen worse situation with just one simple effect. We are having everything here. Okay, so in that regards, at least if you can afford to play with ray tracing, of course do it, because at the end of the day it is going to look better, but it's not something like you're going to miss anything if you don't. Okay, there are some games where I think there is a bigger difference, like in Cyberpunk. Well, it does make a big difference. Now here you can see the ray tracing has better shadowing. Once again, the water looks different. Okay, some may argue that they even like more the cinematic water, but you see here we can see that the shadows are more defined. So yeah, that's something to have. In this area, for example, look at the shadows on here on the background. They are much defined. You can see more details and stuff, because the shadows are allowing you to do that, and this is more realistic. But does it make that big of a difference? I don't think so. I don't think this, you know, maybe they had to downgrade it because it was too much. Maybe Unreal is not that good when it comes to well, we know it's not, but you know. So here, for example, one thing that I do think it looks much better is the character. As you can see here, when we see the difference, I think the cell shadowing of the character make it look more realistic, better integrated into the environment. So that's one plus thing that RT give you, but as I said, I don't think it's something that is going to make such a big difference. Also, as you can see on the background is different, it's like more lit, more realistic, and the color is different. And the reason color normally is different when RT is because remember when light bounce, then it's going to take the properties of the element which is bouncing and the color. So in this case we are seeing the color being you know, projected onto the other environment, so that's why it may looks like colors are different in certain areas. But now one funny thing about that RT is supposed to fix, and it seems that they limited in this game, is this. Look at this head right here, right? Look at the water. You saw it here, you didn't? Okay, look at this one, look at this one. There is no reflection, and now there is a reflection. So it seems that they have put some sort of distance to when the reflections or RT reflections are supposed to kick in, which is, you know, for my point of view, against everything that Raytrace is supposed to be fixing, which is exactly that sort of things. I don't want to see things popping up. Okay, if I'm playing with ray tracing, it's because I have the powerhouse to move it, so please don't do that, or allow me to select the distance or something. But that looks really bad, especially if you are using ray tracing. Now when we look at the graphics, as you can see, yeah, the water looks better, shadow look better. This, for example, here we see the reflection or sort of a reflection here, which is not present here, as you can see. And look here, we can see, okay, you can see there is a reflection that is not here, so that's something nice. Here we don't see the character, here we see the character, okay? I mean the reflection of that character in particular. So yeah, of course, ray tracing have some advantages, okay? The loss in FPS from my point of view is not that huge, and you can adapt it to your own hardware. However, I still don't think it's a big difference, because you see every single thing is very well self-shadow. Look at this branch here, it has a shadow. Under the rock is well, you know, shadow, ambient occlusion. And when I move to the RT version, they are still shadowy, so there is nothing really different. The only difference I saw is here in this area. Look, there is no shadowing or things. Well, there is some here. I'm not quite sure what that is. Maybe there's some water there. I can't see exactly what is happening there, but there is a difference. But still, I don't think it's worth anything. And now here comes the stuttering. Look, oh yeah, the stuttering. That stuttering happens always in the same place, and that's because that's the traversal stuttering. I didn't see like shader compilation stuttering, but this game has a lot of traversal stuttering. Here is also an area. Look, yes, the RT version definitely looks much better here. You see? Look at the difference. So this pool of water obviously looks so much better with RT, but does it, you know, does it work exactly 20 FPS in this particular case? Look at the temple here, or the entrance, it looks also so much better, more self-shadow, different color than here, because as you see, these statues seem to be more realistic under the shadowing. Instead here they tend to like glow or stick out. True, RT gives more ground to reality in this particular scene. As I said, maybe other scenes are also much better, but still I don't think the difference is big enough to justify what we're seeing. There are other games like Alan Wake, Cyberpunk, The Witcher, where I think we have even some Lego games where the ray tracing really adds a lot to the game, or even Spider-Man, because of the environment and all the reflections. I think RT adds so much. Ratchet and Clank. But in this particular game, at least in this particular benchmark, I don't see anything. But of course, this is going to be checked when we check the final game and everything. I just wanted to check this benchmark in the meantime, just to see, you know, what to expect. And it's a good thing, because now my expectations are lower than they were before. So, okay, let's go to the conclusions and then close this video. So, well, as you saw, there are good things and bad things, okay? For example, one of the bad things is the over-sharpening that the game shows. It's extremely sharpened. I don't know what that's about, but it looks like even pixelated at points, no matter what. Even if you're playing a completely native resolution or DLA, it looks over-sharpened. And I hope this is something they change, or you can change at some point, because I didn't like the look of that. That's to begin with. The other thing I was very surprised is how scalable the game is. I have to say, even at 2 cores, the game ran quite decent. Of course, at so lower core count, you're going to have like more stuttering and lower 1% lows. But this just tells me that even 4 core is going to be enough for more people to get at least to 60 FPS. It seems to be a very CPU dependent game, but even then it seems that the team has done a very good job optimizing for CPU scaling, which we know Unreal is not like the best when it comes to that. Normally it's very dependent on 1 or 2 cores, so it seems that it's scaling decent enough to make everyone, you know, having a good experience depending on your CPU, but it doesn't have to be like a super modern, super fast CPU, at least to get to 60 FPS, okay? The other good thing that I have to say is that it comes with all the technologies, TSR, DLSS, XeSS, FSR, so that means that you're going to be able to use whatever you want and to make your game run smooth and without any issues, and you have also frame generation. However, as I said, I'm not sure if this is bringing FSR 3.1 or not, and so I don't know if the FSR frame generation that this game bringing the latest. I don't think so, because I couldn't see any DLL file on the folder that the games on the benchmark is, so I'm not sure about that. The other thing that I found disappointing in this game, the other 2 things I would say disappointing, I couldn't see, or I didn't feel like too many shader compilations stuttering, so that's good, but I saw a lot of traversal stuttering. As you saw in the benchmark, there is different points in the benchmark where there is always a stutter, and that's not a good look for me. I think that's very bad, because if they are always happening on the same place, it means that they can somehow be worked out to at least minimize it, and they are very noticeable no matter what you're doing, how many cores, what configuration. There is always a stutter at that point, and there is no way to minimize that, and I think that should be and needs to be fixed for the final game, hopefully, but I don't have my hopes up. The other problem, the other disappointing part I saw on this video is the ray tracing. We know Unreal and ray tracing are not the best friends. Every single Unreal game that I've seen with ray tracing doesn't really perform that good, to be honest. For some reason, I don't think Unreal has worked to integrate ray tracing in a good or performant way. It's very lacking. Games like Hogwarts Legacy has shown that every time you activate ray tracing, there is not much difference, and there is a loss in performance, which I don't mind having as long as there is a big difference. For example, on The Witcher 3, Cyberpunk, Alan Wake 2, Ratchet & Clank, Spider-Man, or the Frostbite games that have it, even some of the previous Call of Duty games that came with ray tracing, they all are proprietary engines, even the Doom Eternal game, and they all look good and the performance is good. But in this case, I think every single Unreal Engine game that comes with any sort of ray tracing, Jedi Survivor, the ray tracing is horrible. Its implementation, graphically, visually, is just bad. Everything is bad about it. I don't know if this is because they want to push for Lumen or what, but it's bad. And either Nvidia and AMD, Unreal, all of them need to work together to improve the ray tracing support for Unreal Engine, because it's lacking and really, really, really bad. Okay, well, we're seeing Avatar, another game that has ray tracing, and the new Outlaws is coming, which also support ray tracing, and is much more performant and better looking in every sense of the way. So I don't know what's happening here with Unreal, but this is not a new thing, and I think it needs to be fixed. Either don't support ray tracing at all, because there is no point if it is going to look this bad, okay, or just fix it. Okay, that's one thing. So as you see, there are some good and some bad things about this game. The benchmark is 8 GB in size, so you can download it, test it yourself, and see how it goes. I think it's a game that is not terribly bad optimized, so I think everybody should be able to enjoy it, but I think there are many black points somewhere in places that makes this worse optimized, and for a technical standpoint game that it should. Then as for gameplay or quality of the game, we have to wait for the final release just to see it. I already have the game pre-order, so I'm going to be testing that for the channel, but in the meantime you can test the game and I don't know, maybe come out with your own conclusions about it. I hope you like this video, and as always, see you on the next one.